Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. I'm Scott Hambrick.
I'm Karl Shute.
And today on the Online Great Books podcast, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I think this is our 100th episode, Karl.
Is it?
I think so.
Seems we should have something festive.
I got an idea. Let's talk about Charles Dickens' classic, A Christmas Carol. How about that?
This is a marvelous little short story that you might never have read because it's been such a cliche. You might have seen Scrooged with Bill Murray. If you're lucky, you saw The Muppet Christmas Carol.
I talked to Worsham, and I said, we're supposed to be reading this short story, A Christmas Carol, but it's like 90 pages long. It's not that short. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. Just watch A Muppet Christmas Carol, and it'll be fine. Don't read it.
Well, The Muppet Christmas Carol is actually the most accurate one I've ever seen, even though it has Muppets in it.
Sure.
It gets more of the story in. But the story's really good. Eat your unprocessed food. Get your Scrooge unprocessed. Mm-hmm. Go read the original thing. It's from 1843. I'm not sure where he published it. I didn't really dig too much into Dickens, but anyone can do that. Charles Dickens is a big deal in English literature. You probably were forced to read some of him in high school. At least I was, and I hated it then. I like it better now.
I tried to read, I don't know what it was. It's probably A Tale of Two Cities or Bleak House. I think I tried to read 3 or 4 different pieces of Dickens at some point and couldn't do it.
He likes his words. It's my understanding he got paid by the word.
Yeah.
So he's not in a hurry to get anywhere. I think he's really good at what he does. You just have to realize this is not Hemingway. You know, it's going to ramble. It's going to take a page and a half to tell you exactly how dead the doornail was at the beginning of this book. Enjoy it, is what I would say. In his books, he has a concern for poverty, it seems, a lot, for the underdog. There's a lot to like about Dickens. But we're going to do A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, you talk about all this rambling and being paid by the word and such. You know, Bleak House is just a cinder block of a book. Tale of Two Cities is the same. I didn't think this rambled. I didn't think this was excessively wordy. I thought it was actually pretty funny and clever. You know, it was clearly something that was published in some magazine. You know, it has that feel, and I think it just bounced right along. I didn't experience it the same way I had that other.
Well, there's a little sample of it. So if we start at the beginning, Marley's ghost. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt. Just listen to how he keeps talking about how dead he is. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. And Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. All right, so we've got a whole paragraph to say Marley was dead. But now we're going to have the diversion about the doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile. And my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was dead as a doornail. I think that's fun.
I thought it was fun, too. I thought it was funny. I thought it was colloquial, sort of. I was surprised that I thought it was funny. He wrote a book called Bleak House, for Christ's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
It's not bleak.
Tale of Two Cities is not a laugh riot. But I don't think the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile. I think it was the alliteration, Mr. Dickens. Dead as a doornail. You can't say dead as a coffin nail because you go from the D sound to the C, to the hard C.
Doornails aren't anything we talk about in any other arena either. So it was clearly picked because of the alliterative power there.
Yeah. When's the last time you thought of a doornail?
I'll tell you, around here we say doorknob.
Yeah, but, well, the doornail would be, I think, the thing holding the door up.
Yeah, but that doorknob is no more alive than the nail, is it?
You say dead as a doorknob?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Maybe. Maybe. They say a lot of things around here.
So the scene is set. Marley, who was Scrooge's partner, has died. And you need to know that Marley is dead because, well, or nothing else that he will relate will appear at all wondrous. Because Marley's ghost shows up.
I got to say, I say things sometimes, and you don't have a poker face. So we recorded the other day, and I said that this guy tied a bunch of holes together and made shirts, and you flinched. And I went, oh, I guess I was too oaky or something.
I wouldn't call that flinching. I'm just digesting the expression. I'm saving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that I don't like them. It's quite the opposite.
The first person I heard of doing that was my Uncle Audie. Have I told you about Uncle Audie? And his middle name was Omija.
Yes, you have.
Have I told the listeners?
I don't remember. We've done 100 shows.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell it again for Christmas, you see. My great uncle was Audie Omija. And my grandmother, his sister, and I were talking one day. I said, what is Omija? I've never even heard of this name. Now, my great uncle, Audie, I had never seen his name written. I mean, like if you're 11 years old, maybe you're not going to see your great uncle's middle name written down anywhere. And I said, what the heck? What is this? I don't understand what his name is. She said, well, it's out of the Bible. It's spelled Omega, the Alpha and the Omega. Well, these are just country people that didn't listen to the radio or have television, and they read the Bible for themselves. And that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm convinced, by the way, that critter is creature for people who got that from the King James Bible and hadn't had it read to them by somebody that knew the difference.
Yeah, probably victuals too.
Creator, victuals, yeah.
The language here is beautiful. So Scrooge, so we've got these two characters, and Marley is dead. You have to remember, dead as a doornail. And Scrooge, who is, what does he do for a living? He's a landlord?
No, they keep talking about like he's a money exchange. And
he holds somebody's mortgage. At the very end, in the Ghost of Christmas Future, there's that couple that are very happy that Scrooge is dead because they won't get a harder person to hold their mortgage than him.
I think he's a banker of some kind.
Well, I love the language. This is poetry to me. This is on page 16. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. You can hear him like scrabbling like a rat in the walls. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster.
Solitary as an oyster is perfect.
There's all sorts of, speaking of alliteration, there's a lot of that in there, secret and self-contained and solitary, and then the repeating squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching. This guy knows his language.
It's so clever. A frosty rime was on his head and on his eyebrows and his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw at 1 degree at Christmas. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him. Yeah, it's great writing.
It almost seems admirable though, right?
Oh, he is the perfection of Scroogeness.
Yeah, nothing changes him.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So you've seen the movies, you know the story.
Most people are going to know this story before they actually read it.
Uh-huh.
What about that?
It's like Oedipus. You know about Oedipus before you read it. There'll be some things that you don't see in the movies. They don't give you all of the language. The Muppet Christmas Carol gives you quite a bit of the language, but the other ones maybe not. You can read it for the joy of that. There are details that you won't get. Mm-hmm. Like in the Christmas Past, there's some details about his girlfriend that I haven't seen in the movie that you won't get. We can talk about that in a minute.
In reading this, I found that I had not read it before because I thought I didn't need to read it because I thought I already knew it.
Yeah. And what did you find?
I think I knew about it, which is different than knowing it.
Right. Well, you've read about eating prime rib, but you haven't actually eaten it.
Right. I've eaten prime rib. It's not that crazy Japanese stuff where they feed it beer and give it massages and stuff all the time. Just not that.
Because you don't want to ruin your palate.
I don't want to ruin my regular prime rib. I get it, Sam.
You're saying humbug to that.
Right. Harumph.
Well, anyway, his nephew shows up. his unnamed nephew, shows up and says, "Merry Christmas, Uncle." And Scrooge says famously on page 17, "Bah," said Scrooge, "humbug." The nephew can't believe it. How could you crap on Christmas? Well, Christmas is bad for business.
We just did a Music and Ideas show about Vince Guaraldi's Charlie Brown Christmas album. And Charlie Brown is struggling with Christmas. Everyone is so excited about Christmas, but Charlie Brown isn't. And he ends up producing, being the director of the little school play. And he asks, does anyone know what the real true meaning of Christmas is? And then Linus gives him the answer. Scrooge is concerned with the commercial aspects of Christmas, mostly the secular aspects of Christmas. He doesn't value community, family, social warmth very much. But there's a lot about modern Christmas to not like, Karl.
Mm-hmm.
I can bah humbug the hell out of most of it. Like Scrooge, and I've been called that, I think most of it is rubbish, and I'm not interested in it. I get it.
So you would agree when he says, "Merry Christmas, out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer, a time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should."
That's pretty good. Boiled in his own pudding.
I mean, he has to give Cratchit a day off, and he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah,
it's his one concession. It might be his saving grace. To get a little theological, why does Scrooge? So Scrooge gets visited by Marley. Marley can't quite be in hell because then he wouldn't be allowed out.
Interesting.
So he's got this chain. From my perspective, I don't think Marley's in hell. But he's being purgated quite a bit. And he's sent back, and he does a good deed for his friend. I don't know how friendly they were, but for his only friend, Ebenezer Scrooge. And Ebenezer, what a great name. That's a biblical name.
Yeah.
Dickens is great on names.
Cratchit.
And does him the kindness of warning him he's making his own chains, and that he'd better watch out.
Gosh, I remember hearing like radio productions of this, and the ghosts all drag these chains around and they clink and clank in the radio productions or even in the movie productions. But here, let me see if I can find what page.
While you're looking for that, I want to point out this is something you won't get from the movies usually. So the nephew, he defends Christmas. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I really like is he says, all right, so I'll just pick it up here. It's a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. I love that little bit. That little bit there. Rather than thinking of people as enemies or people below you or even people above you, they're people like you, and we talked about this in the Elegy in a Country Courtyard, right? They're all going to the same place. And so Christmas time is a time to remember that. I thought that was an interesting bit that I'd missed before. And Cratchit, after he hears the speech, involuntarily applauded. I thought that was funny. Cratchit is sitting there over his one coal, doing whatever he does, and he hears the nephew come in and give a defense of Christmas. He's like, oh,
well done.
How wonderful.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
They have that in the Muppet Christmas Carol, too, where, Cratchit claps and gets scowled at. It's very funny.
Who's Cratchit in the Muppet one? Kermit?
That would be Kermit the Frog. His middle name is The.
Yeah, so I think it's important here that the nephew invites him. He says, "Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow." So he came to invite him over for Christmas dinner. And I guess he does that every year, and Scrooge always says no and throws him out.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Cried Scrooge's nephew. Why? And then Scrooge says, why did you get married? He says, because I fell in love. Because you fell in love, growled Scrooge, as if that were the only thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon. He can't even understand that.
And the good afternoon is like,
good day.
GTFO.
Yeah. I say good day. If I ever run a business again with a storefront, I'm going to do that to someone. I say good day. Instead of get out. That would be great.
Don't make me say good day again.
Right. Good day. So good.
Yeah, so his commercial complaint, there's another fellow, my clerk with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. It's about the money.
Yeah.
What about the poor?
What about them?
So the gentlemen come in. Maybe it's one here. I'm thinking of the movie. Comes in to get a subscription for some sort of charitable organization. How much money can I put you down for? Scrooge's response is, well, are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
Union workhouses, by the way.
Huh. And the treadmill and the poor law are still in full vigor, whatever those are. I didn't look them up. So the unnamed gentleman says, what shall I put you down for? Nothing, Scrooge replied. You wish to remain anonymous? I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that's my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. So he's like, I pay my taxes.
Yep.
I'm done.
See, that's one of the big problems with taxes and government taking control of this. Now, Scrooge is is a caricature of that attitude, but most people think that whatever sort of charitable works need to be done are taken care of by the government. They think they may not say, I've already paid for that, but they think, oh, that's been taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to do that.
Well, and taken care of in an impersonal manner, which can let Scrooge be as solitary as an oyster.
Right.
There's more to charity than the good that you're doing to the person that you give to. There's the good that you're doing for yourself.
Yes. Plato's, is it better to be harmed or to do harm? How about this? Is it better to help or be helped?
I think it's probably better to help.
I think it probably is too.
And then there's what I think is a brilliant bit. I have a feeling he wrote this thing in installments and probably didn't know where he was going with it, had a general idea. I was trying to work out the chronology. It seems to me Marley says there are going to be 3 different nights of ghosts, but they're all on the same night.
Yeah, and he explains it away. Well, these ghosts can do anything they want,
Yeah. But this line here, if they would rather die, so the gentleman said, many can't go there and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population. That's Malthus, Thomas Malthus.
Right, exactly.
And that quote comes back. One of the ghosts hits him with that.
We got to read some Malthus.
We could do that if you really want to. But so he's learned that Tiny Tim is sick. He mentions to the ghost of Christmas present, well, is he going to be okay or something like that? And, well, the ghost says he had better do it then and decrease the surplus population.
Womp, womp.
Yeah, so it takes the abstract, those people just need to die, and puts it in the personal. Well, that's a good trick, Charles Dickens.
So, I'm interested in some of these things, Karl. Cratchit is being paid 15 shillings a week. So I had to go look that up. There are 20, back before decimalization, there were 20 shillings to the pound.
So weird.
And then it used to be a pound sterling was literally exchangeable for a pound, a troy pound, which is 13 ounces of silver. I'm doing this from memory, so some of this is going to be wrong, but the gist is right. So it used to be back before everybody got off these metal standards, you could go take a banknote somewhere and give them a pound note, and they would push 13 ounces of sterling across the counter to you. Kind of keeps it all honest, don't you know? Like 15 shillings a week, that's not even a pound a week. And right now, I don't know, a pound is probably worth a $1.30, something like that. So this is a guy, where everybody's like, oh, so many people, 1.5 billion people live on less than $1 a day. Well, in 1840s London, I guess this is London. In 1840s England, Cratchit's living on less than $1 a week. He is. I'm interested in this stuff, Karl. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the British Museum a few years ago, and they had this exhibit about money. And then I had this realization that you used to be able to get 13 ounces of silver in exchange for a British pound banknote. Do you know today an ounce of silver is $23.98?
Okay, so a pound should be
$311.74.
Could you live on that for a week? Maybe
so. So that works out to about $205, as best as I can tell by my rough math, a week. That ain't fat living, but that's not horrible. I remember in the Sherlock Holmes stories, there were a couple of instances where some lady comes in and she has an inheritance that yields her an income of 200 pounds a year. And then Sherlock says, she's well-to-do. She's well-fixed with her 200 pounds a year, Cratchit is at about a fourth of that. I was just trying to figure out just how poor is this guy. It's bad, but it's not quite as bad as I thought it was. That has more to do with me than Cratchit. But
he has 5 kids. He's got the 2 daughters, and then Peter, and then Tim, and I think there's another one.
And then there's another daughter that doesn't live with him.
Yeah, they're probably eating a lot of beans or whatever the equivalent is in England. Porridge.
Yeah. By the way, what about the fact that you could, before they got off the metal standard, you could go get essentially $300-something for a paper banknote, and now you can get half a pack of Hubba Bubba.
I'm for it.
The Hubba Bubba?
No, the other thing.
Yeah, me too. We need to read Aquinas on money.
No, that's a huge question. Going off a standard for your money. It's been so long, the people who think that it wasn't a good idea are now the crackpots. It might not have been a good idea.
It might not have been a good idea. Yeah. So when you read, 15 shillings, because of inflation and all that wackiness, it just seems impossible.
So Scrooge pays him not a great salary, but he can live.
Not at all.
And I think the kindness of Scrooge, there is a tiny bit of kindness, which he kind of growls out. It's on bottom of 22 and a 23. You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose, said Scrooge. If quite convenient, sir. It's not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound. The clerk smiled faintly. And yet, you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work. The clerk observed it was only once a year. Poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have, that's the moment. I suppose you must have the whole day, be here all the earlier next morning, which he doesn't do. He shows up a little late because he's hungover, because he's drinking gin punch with his family.
I used to make payroll and have time clocks and cut paychecks. And paid holidays always bothered me. Not because maybe I am Scrooge. They always bothered me because I always thought it would be so much better if you didn't pay people when they weren't there, but you paid them more when they were. Right? If somebody gets paid, just for ease of math, $52,000 a year, that's $1,000 a week. They work for an hourly wage. Let's just work it out so that they get paid $52,000 a year for the work they do. And let's put aside all this paid holiday baloney so it all is transparent and clean and good.
But no, it feels better if you're the worker because you didn't come in that day and you get paid. It doesn't matter that the total amount you get paid for the year would be the same.
Or does it feel better that your wage is higher every single hour?
No. No, because you didn't get something for nothing. They want to get something for nothing.
That always really bugged me. I never minded people having off the whole week between Christmas and New Year's, the day after New Year's Day. I never minded that at all. But the whole thing that we had to pay for it, I would just, it's the same thing with like payroll withholding. Like, oh, you pay this percentage for Social Security and your employer matches it. No, you pay all of it. I have a bookkeeping entry that says payroll expenses, It all goes in that bookkeeping entry. It all looks, accounting-wise, like it was a wage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like all that stuff. The Aristotle in me doesn't like it. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It's metaphysically wrong, Karl.
All right, so Marley shows up.
Karl's like, anyway.
I'm dragging us off the gold standard, or the silver standard. Marley shows up, and obviously he's dead. You had to know that he was dead. That was made very clear on the first page, that he is, in fact, dead. He tells Scrooge he's in trouble.
Is Marley working towards some salvation?
That was my thought on this reading of it, because he's doing a kindness, and if he was, in fact, damned, he wouldn't be.
Marley doesn't say, get your stuff together, because if you do right and I help you redeem yourself, then I get out of my limbo state here. It doesn't say that, but that was certainly my impression. I don't know.
I need supporting evidence for my point. And I thought there was some, but...
I looked for it, but I didn't see it, Karl.
Yeah, bottom of 30.
Of course Karl sees it.
So Scrooge says, "Don't be hard upon me, don't be flowery, Jacob, pray. How is it that I appear before you in a shape that you can see? I may not tell." This is Marley talking. "I have sat invisible beside you many, many a day." And then he says, "That is no light part of my penance. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer." So there's 2 points there. It's penance.
Penance, yeah.
It's a good deed from Marley. Penance is something that you do as a token of forgiveness. It's not Lake of Fire underworld thing. So that's as clear as I think it is, if it's at all clear. And look at what Scrooge says. "You were always a good friend to me," said Scrooge. "Thank ye." "You will be haunted," resumed the ghost. He gets back into his spiel, his advertising, "by 3 spirits. I don't think there would be kindness." I don't know how deeply Dickens thought about this stuff, but he's not here and I am, so.
Yeah, there seems to be something sinisterly commercial about his writing about the poor.
Sinisterly commercial.
Yeah, how are you going to sell a bunch of, penny rags to, most of people in England are going to be poor, right? It's mass market, I think, to write about this. And I don't know. I guess I question his beliefs about the poor. Not that anybody is wants a bunch of people to be poor or whatever. And I don't know hardly anything at all about Dickens, but what did he actually do to help the poor other than write about it and then cash those checks?
I don't know. That's for Dickens scholars, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let me look at the philanthropy entry.
I hope there's a bunch of stuff there, and I'm full of it.
He founded a home, the Urania Cottage, for the redemption of fallen women.
Well, that might just be some... Yeah, that's a little different animal. Okay. Okay.
I don't know more about that other than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think you're suspecting he might be writing about the poor to make money?
Well, it's mass market.
Well, it certainly made him money, but I don't know that that's necessarily insincere.
I don't want to completely just go at his sincerity here, but Scrooge is an easy bad guy, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a boss that seems a little cheaper than he needs to be. The toilet paper's never as soft at the office as it could be because it's, All
right, so I'm thinking about a scene in Pickwick Papers, which is enormous, and I only read a part of them. This horrifying scene where this guy is dying of alcoholism, and having seeing hallucinations and tormenting his wife and her family are in the house with him as this is all happening. It's a horrifying scene. Or reading Oliver Twist, it's hard for me to read those things and see insincerity there. They seem too heartfelt to me. As for what he actually did, I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
In this short story, it's a little more florid than that. You know what I mean? I mean, Scrooge is such a caricature, and Tiny Tim is such a caricature of poverty. It's a little much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it for sure, but it's all a bit on the nose is all I'm saying.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's go to the first of the three spirits. So he goes to sleep, and the first spirit appears to him.
Stave 2.
Yes. Who and what are you? I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past? No, your past. The figure looks like a child, but like an old man, with white hair, but with an unwrinkled face. Kind of a strange thing. And he gets to go see his childhood. So you get to see, I don't think he's quite a caricature. You get to see why Scrooge is the way he is. And you learn some things about him. You learn that he was a lonely kid in the school, neglected, left there over the holidays, that his father was hard. We don't know exactly why. His sister comes in to bring him home. I've come to bring you home, dear brother, home for good and all, home forever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. So there's some rough stuff in his past. We don't meet the elder Scrooge, except in this passage. But his son can't stay home. He's got to get out of the house because the father won't let him come home. And he has one sister. She dies young. She's the mother of the nephew.
Which is important.
Yeah.
Nephew's a good guy. After the Ghost of Christmas Past comes, let's see where it is. It's here on page 34. Dickens breaks the fourth wall, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yes, he does.
He says, the curtain of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, standing up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am now to you, and I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. That's fantastic. Yes. Marley had talked about sitting right beside Scrooge at that desk for all the time, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. He's right over there. Can't you see him?
No, I'm not looking. I won't look. I refuse to look and fear that he might be there. There's just so many clever tricks in this book, and clever writing, the alliteration, him breaking the fourth wall right there. On 36, he says, the ghost says, hey, let's go. And they got to go fly like Peter Pan or whatever, And he says, bear but a touch of my hand there, said the spirit, laying it upon his heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this. I love that. We're not just going to fly, but you're going to be upheld in more than this.
Mm-hmm. Did you see him bust on the United States?
Yeah, where was it?
That's page 33.
Yeah. If
he lost his character or something, then his word would become a mere United States security.
Yes. He's not wrong. Yeah, Jackson had been breaking up all these banks and stuff. I imagine it was a mess in the 1830s and 40s. So they go back to his childhood, and he says, and Dickens writes, he was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten. I was working outside the other day. It was actually several months ago. And the weather was perfect, and the humidity was perfect, and all was perfect. And it smelled just like my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Smell and memory.
Yeah.
Are connected. We were talking on the earlier show about going to my grandmother's house. Cigarette smoke takes me right back.
What did Grandma smoke?
Menthols?
Uh-oh. Newport or Cool?
I can't remember exactly. I'd have to ask my dad. She smoked a lot.
Yeah.
I think it done her in, too, but that's my memory. Something in the lungs got her.
Mesothelioma?
I don't think. Well, that would be asbestos.
Right.
I don't know. I love one of my favorite character names ever. I think he did this on purpose so that 150 years later, somebody could have Fozzie Bear play the character. Fezziwig.
Mm-hmm.
His old boss, Fezziwig, who runs some kind of warehouse, played by Fozzie in the Muppet Christmas Carol as Fozziewig. Fezziwig, it's Christmas time, and he closes down and says, "Get rid of the tables. We're gonna have a party." There's one fiddle player. I thought that was funny. That part of the orchestra is played by one fiddler, which I guess you could do, and just has this huge party that everyone shows up to.
What page is that on, Karl?
Fezziwig shows up on 41.
41, yeah. I always love to look up these songs because he actually mentions one of these songs that they played. The fiddle was tuned like 50 stomach aches. It's great. Kind of felt like Twain, you know?
Yeah, they're similar.
I'll find the song.
Sir Roger de Coverley.
That's it. I found that. I went and looked it up and played it. Like these books, there's so much music that people loved and is gone. You know, the bestseller from 1926, who even knows? You know, nobody even knows what it is. It might not have been any good, but we've lost so many of those things. And then these songs are interesting to me. And I'm trying to pull up Spotify here so we could play a little chunk of this.
I like how Fezziwig's described when he's dancing. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves.
From his calves. I like that.
Yeah, he's probably got the old-fashioned pants on, and his calves are bare, or at least in just hose or something, and they're shining. Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs, and came upon his feet again without a stagger. But a big part of the Christmas past is for Scrooge to enjoy things that he'd forgotten that he enjoyed. So he gets to go to the party again on 44. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene and with his former self. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. And the ghost says, "A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude." So the point being that Fezziwig spent a little bit of money, not that much, a little bit of money, to get the place, get food and a fiddler and rum punch or something, whatever they're drinking, and everybody remembers that party.
Yeah. The spirit says that he had spent but a few pounds. And then Scrooge says, "It isn't that, spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil." It's a little management tip for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the work's got to be done. Are we going to have a good time with doing it, or is it going to be miserable?
Well, Scrooge had a girlfriend. He had a lady with whom he had an understanding.
Charity and I have an understanding.
Just one?
Just one.
She's complaining, "Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve." "What idol has displaced you?" he rejoined. "A golden one." So he has started to think about money. And he complains back to her. He says, "There's nothing on earth which is so hard as poverty, but the poor, there's nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth." His answer, "Look, poverty is the worst thing in the world." She's like, "Well, you know, good luck to you."
Yeah, let's test that, she says.
And she releases him. It's hard. On 46, "I release you with full heart for the love of him you once were. May you be happy in the life you have chosen." Now, that's where Muppet Christmas Carol stops. Okay, they sing a song because it's a musical, and then they go on. But that's not where Dickens ends. Dickens shows you the girl married with kids.
Womp womp.
Just this uproarious scene of I don't know if they're all her kids or it's just a party. Every child was conducting itself like 40.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what could have been his life. He says on 48, "Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful and full of promise, might have called him father, and been a springtime in the haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed." Yeah, that's not in the movies.
No.
Dear listener, I don't know if you have kids. You might not get it if you don't. But a springtime in the haggard winter of my life, which is something I certainly need. So I'm happy I didn't do what Scrooge did.
I tell you, this is interesting to me. I have done a little bit of what Scrooge did. A little bit. I think that young men in their 20s ought to work their ass off. Because they can. That sort of time value of money. If you don't get in debt and you work your rump off and salt that money away, that can work out pretty well. But you can also mess up real bad. This whole thing about focus on your career and blah 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 blah, and you can have kids later. Well, really, the most important thing is the relationships. And I've walked the earth like Cain here for 46 years, and the most enduring relationships are my mom, my dad, my sister, and my wife. And then behind that are the kids. I've had relationships with them for 16 and 18 years. I don't have any other relationships that even compare to that. So I had difficulty, as I think a lot of people do, kind of maintaining that balance between those relationships in your 20s and making hay while the sun's shining in your 20s. He did not maintain that balance. He was not able to do that. I have friends that were not able to do that, or they didn't do that. And at some point, the teeter-totter for those people has tipped. There's a point where you work and you build a business and you spend all the time on that and you have an enormous amount of yourself invested in it, hardship in it, and now you're 33 and you got 2 long-term relationships behind you. Yahtzee. It's easy to not come back from that, right? To double down on what now seems like your life path.
Well, this has been a constant, I think, from you in your entire podcast career. And you've shown me some of your early essays, and you've always been you. Scratch on Scott Hambrick, and you just get more Scott.
Yeah.
But so you get to 33 or so, and you're career-oriented. Maybe we read Scrooge as that and just never got around to it. Have you seen the New Yorker cover for this week?
No, I had a friend tell me that I needed to go look at that.
I don't know what they're trying to do. They have a woman in there drinking wine on a Zoom call, wearing a dress shirt above the waist, completely slovenly below. There's cats in the place. The place is a mess. She's alone. I don't know what they're trying to say, that it is the new normal or that it should be the new normal, but that's a Scrooge. I don't know if she knows it, but there she is. That's a Scrooge, except Scrooge didn't drink or have a cat, I don't think.
Yeah.
Have a little clarity. This would be a good thing for reading this story. What do I want my life to have been at the end?
All right, we've got it to do. We can make of it what we will.
Yeah, so that's a bit hard to read. Poor Scrooge. I wish they put that in the movies, but...
Oh, well, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Everybody just wants you to just make more money and spend more money. They don't, how is anybody going to make money off of you having more kids and spending more time with your old lady? Or you've taken a deck of cards you paid 98 cents for and playing cards with them for 40 hours. Like, how are they?
Yes, but what is the point of life? Is the point of life making
profit.
Other people's balance sheets line up? Or is the point of life my life?
Well, who are we asking?
Well, I'm asking the world, but...
If we ask Bezos, it's,
This is what the nephew says to Scrooge on 66. I'm jumping ahead to the next ghost.
Karl doesn't want to be political today.
No, I'm being political, but I'm making it universal.
I get it.
Because if I'm political, you're just going to turn me off and not get what I'm saying. I'd rather you get what I'm saying. So on 66, the nephew says he's talking to his family and about his uncle. His offenses carry their own punishment. He's made of his life what it is, and the punishment is that he has to live his life.
His nephew is so generous and kind. He really is.
Yeah.
He says, I'm so sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself, always. Here he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? he don't lose much of a dinner. Indeed, I think he loses a very good dinner, his niece said.
That's his wife saying,
Yeah.
I've made a good dinner. I think that's funny.
And he says, no, it doesn't matter how awful he is. I'm going to invite him every year.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the ghost of Christmas present, not the ghost of Christmas presents. This is the large kind of nature spirit. Come in and know me better, man. It's he's the fun one. He's surrounded with food, walks around with his torch bestowing Christmas cheer, even to the people in the lighthouse. There's some details in there. So they don't just go to see Tiny Tim, and they go a little bit around the world. And there's a scene, I can't remember what page, in some lighthouse and on some ships at sea where the ghost of Christmas present taps his wand on them, and suddenly they're more friendly to each other.
Joining with their horny hands over the rough table at which they sat, they wished each other Merry Christmas in their can of grog, and one of them, the elder too, with his face all damaged and scarred with hard weather, as the figurehead of an old ship might be, struck up a sturdy song that was like a gale in itself. Yeah, these two guys alone in a lighthouse having their rough and simple Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty neat.
I noticed, this is why I say The Muppet Christmas Carol. I'm going to emphasize for you, dear listener, The Muppet Christmas Carol is the one you need to watch. Okay? It's extremely accurate. And there's a scene in there where they're going through the market and all the vegetables are talking. Because it's The Muppet Christmas Carol and vegetables talk. And you think, well, that's just a Muppet thing. No, it is not a Muppet thing. On the bottom of 54, there were great round pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts shaped like the waistcoats of jolly old gentlemen lolling at the doors and tumbling out of the street in their apoplectic opulence, which is a great line. There were ruddy, brown-faced, broad-girthed Spanish onions shining in the fatness of their growth like Spanish friars and winking from their shelves in wanton slyness at the girls as they went by and glanced demurely at the hung-up mistletoe. This is beautiful. The onions are winking at the girls.
The onions want to kiss the girls. Yes.
Dickens was a fan of the sage and the onion, I think.
Yeah, he was. And the hot alcoholic drinks.
Yeah, I sent you a link for that.
There were pears and apples clustered high in blooming pyramids. There were bunches of grapes made in the shopkeeper's benevolence to dangle from conspicuous hooks that people's mouths might water gratis as they passed. There were piles of filberts, mossy and brown, recalling in their fragrance ancient walks among the woods and pleasant shufflings ankle-deep through withered leaves. There were Norfolk biffins, squat and swarthy. He just goes on and on about the fish. They don't have canning technology. The canning jar and the ball pressure canner we don't have that yet. It's desiccation and salts and root cellars. That's it. Pulling off a good dinner in England in 1843 on December 24th or 25th wouldn't be as easy as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
The food's a big deal for these people.
Well, and you had to go to market and get it probably on the day or the day before you were going to do it. So market day would be a big deal too. We get to meet the Cratchits. 57, Cratchit's wife dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for sixpence. So, brave in ribbons, I like that. She doesn't have much. She doesn't have fancy clothes.
Twice turned.
I'm not sure what that means.
I'm not sure either, but this is what I think it means. I told you about Tom McEwen, my bridge partner that was the World War II vet. Maybe I've told you about him. He would... his wife would wear dress shirts, of course, Oxford blue pinpoint Oxford shirts to work every day. He was a mechanical engineer. And when they started to get a little worn, she would take the collar off and flip it over. And the cuffs as well. I think that's what that means. So you wear, it gets a little worn, the collar and the cuffs, and then you flip them over. But you're so poor that you weren't able to get another dress before it became worn again. So you flip them over again because the wear the first time was better than the wear the second time you had the cuff on. I think that's what that means. But collars and cuffs are designed to make the shirt. They're actually wear parts. It used to be you would actually wear a separate collar and your cuffs would be separate.
Yes.
they are wear parts, and the shirts were supposed to last much, much longer. And of course, you wore a jacket so the elbows wouldn't wear on the shirt. I think that's what they're talking about.
That might be right.
Tom is the one that, I don't know if I told this story. He was getting some light bulbs out of that little cabinet above the refrigerator one day, and he saw there was dust on top of the refrigerator, and he took his finger and he wrote, "I love you, January 3rd, 1978 on it. And 3 years later, Elva walked in the living room and threw a glass of ice water on him because she saw that he did that.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
So we meet Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim's a perfect little boy, even though he is ill and not doing well.
He's a bonsai boy.
What's that?
He's a bonsai child.
Yeah, he doesn't have too much character, but he does say, "God bless us, everyone." I like the pudding. They come up with a pudding. Bob Cratchit said, and calmly, that he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage.
Since their marriage. It's the best thing you've done since you married me. I like that.
I like Cratchit. He's a good character.
Did you want to have this gin and lemons drink on 59?
I do. I want to have it. Hot mixture with gin and lemons, and I sent you a link to some great-grandson of Dickens who apparently knew the recipe.
I missed that. Dang it. I'm going to go get it right now. At the end of the thing, when Scrooge goes over to his nephews, the nephew says that they have smoking bishop, and that's sort of a hot mulled wine thing. And I found that what people think that recipe is, and I've had that, and I don't care for it.
So this one is 2 cups gin, 2 cups Madeira, tablespoon dark brown sugar, peel and juice of 1 lemon, peel and juice of 1 orange, 1 pineapple, 3 whole cloves, 3 cinnamon sticks, pinch of nutmeg.
A whole pineapple.
So it's a punch.
Serious. Yeah. Simmer and cook for 30 minutes. Taste and adjust the balance of flavors with more brown sugar or more lemon juice if desired. Pour the mixture into a jug or teapot and serve warm. Of course, when you heat this stuff and simmer it, the alcohol goes away. Right?
Well, you'd have to put the alcohol in later.
So, yeah, nobody's getting... Shouldn't ought to be getting hammered on this.
Well, the only liquid in it is the gin and the wine.
Yes.
So what % of that alcohol boils off, and how quickly?
Depends. We need to heat it in a pressure cooker. In a pressure vessel, so none of the booze gets out.
It might be worth trying.
Yeah. I'm printing it right now, so if you guys hear anything, that's what you hear. That's me printing Bob Cratchit's hot gin punch recipe. You can find it on slate.com. I'm not going to put it in the show notes. Tough.
Well, all you Google experts or DuckDuckGo experts can find it.
Oh my God, DuckDuckGo was caught selling packets of information. Did you see that? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Son of a... What are we going to do?
I don't know. Go to the card catalog.
Get the Thomas Register out. Find the...
I was good with the card catalog.
Oh, yeah.
But page 61 is where so Scrooge has seen this family who, despite not having much, are happier than he's ever been, which is a big deal for him. But he says, "A spirit," said Scrooge with an interest he had never felt before. "Tell me if Tiny Tim will live." "I see a vacant seat," replied the ghost, "in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die." "No, no," said Scrooge. "Oh, no, kind spirit, say he will be spared. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race will find him here. What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population."
Womp womp. It's so funny. He just hits him over the head with it.
And then I like what the ghost says after this. "Man," said the ghost, "if man you be in heart, not adamant." The ghost speaks in an archaic style. "Forbear that wicked cant until you have discovered what the surplus is. and where it is. Will you decide what men shall live, what men shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child. O God, to hear the insect on the leaf pronouncing on the too much life among his hungry brothers in the dust. What does the surplus mean? And I just wrote in my margin, GDP. What does economic efficiency mean? That's a good question. That's a good question, Ghost of the Christmas Present. But he also gets to see his nephew. We've already talked about that a bit. The nephew's having a party, and Fred, that's his name, won't say anything bad about Scrooge.
Yep. Yeah, the nephew's a good man, as best I can tell.
Mm-hmm. I like his strategy. There are people that you can't get to. I feel like I argue pretty well. And I feel like I should be able to convince you in general, people, of stuff. And then you'll believe me. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that doesn't work. Some people are impervious, or maybe my arguments aren't so good, or you've got other reasons to believe what you believe. And at some point you realize that, well, I can't fix this person. I can't. But I can be kind. I can continue to be kind. And who knows what moment of grace that person will see. Maybe something good will come out of it. But you have to, at some point, I like that Fred he just goes over and says, come to my Christmas dinner. Mm-hmm. But he's not badgering Scrooge. He's continuing to give him opportunities to be happy.
Yeah, Fred's a good one. He does the right thing, and then Scrooge can do whatever Scrooges do. Scrooge can keep on Scrooging. Karl, I just looked it up. Malthus's essay on population is 125 pages long.
Why is it so long? Seems it should be easy.
I know. Isn't Malthus like a cousin to Darwin?
I think so. I think I have heard that.
Yeah, so this stuff about excess population is essentially Malthusian.
Yeah. And the ghost just keeps hitting him with that towards the end as he's fading away. We meet wanton ignorance, these two personifications of poverty. Have they no refuge or resource? Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? The bell struck 12, and the ghost was gone. Well, there's one more ghost.
Wait, there's more!
So we have the last of the spirits.
Yes.
The scary one, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. And it's just like this skeletal... we don't actually see it. Shrouded in a deep black garment which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible save one outstretched hand. And it doesn't say anything. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And we get, somebody's died. And we get scenes of people talking about it. He's dead. What's he done with the money? I haven't heard. He hasn't left it to me. Are you going to go to the funeral? I don't mind going if a lunch is provided, but I must be fed. He doesn't know who it is. He finds Old Joe. Old Joe deals in estate sales. It's a nice way to put it. People will rob the houses of the dead and then come to Old Joe to sell it. And this lady took his shirt. It's the bottom of 79. Somebody was fool enough to do it to bury him in it, but I took it off again. If calico ain't good enough for such a purpose, it isn't good enough for anything. It's quite a becoming to the body. He can't look uglier than he did in that one. So they've got his bed curtains. They've got his shirt, which they stole off the body.
Why not?
Why not? It talks about him, how he dies, lying, gasping out his last there alone by himself. There you go. That's the end.
Yep. Gosh.
Scrooge doesn't know that it's him, but I think he probably figured it out.
Yeah, he finally figures it out. But it's It's so lame that he doesn't figure it out immediately.
Well, he doesn't want to.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I mean, you've heard the story. You know what's coming. He probably knows what's coming too, but he doesn't want to see his own death.
Yeah.
Or see Mrs. Dilber and that other lady stealing his clothing off his warm body. And so he begs to see a death with tenderness connected to it. Well, Tiny Tim has died as well. And there's some touching bits here. The mother has been crying, but she doesn't want to show it. She wants to be strong for her husband. This is page 83. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face. "The color hurts my eyes," she said. "The color, poor Tiny Tim. They're better now again," said Cratchit's wife. "It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world." So she's putting on a brave face.
Yep.
And so the father's been off to pick out the gravesite, I think. The kid's lying in state. Did you notice that?
I did.
Tiny Tim's upstairs on the bed. Because that's how you did it.
Yep.
So page 84, Cratchit. "He left the room, went upstairs to the room above, which was lighted cheerfully and hung with Christmas. Oh my gosh. There was a chair set close beside the child, and there were signs of someone having been there lately. Poor Bob sat down in it, and when he'd thought a little and composed himself, he kissed the little face. He was reconciled to what had happened and went down again quite happy."
Holy smoke.
Well, I don't know how he's happy, but he is somehow. Which is a detail.
Little Tim doesn't have to suffer any longer.
Well, and these are churchgoers too.
Yeah.
So they're quoting Bible lines the whole time. That at least they have a belief that it isn't the end, and that they might. He calls it their first parting. On page 85, "I'm sure we shall none of us forget poor Tiny Tim, shall we? Or this first parting that there was among us." Look, I know it's schmaltzy. I know what Dickens is doing. Darn it. I know what he's doing to me, but he's doing it to me anyway.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah, I think that's what another way of saying what I was talking about earlier. It's schmaltzy. He's yanking us around.
Yeah, but he does it so well. You get to see the grave. The spirit says nothing.
Ever.
And Scrooge is starting to beg. He's like, "I can still change this, can't I? Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they the shadows of things that may be only?" And the ghost doesn't say anything. "Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me." The spirit was immovable as ever. "Am I that man who lay upon the bed?" he said, upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. That's the only thing the spirit does to communicate, just with the finger. Which would be another, if you ever have a business again, another thing that you could do.
Right. Oh, I've done that.
Spend a day just with your finger.
Yeah. I say good day.
"Why show me this if I am past all hope?" And the hand begins to shake, the ghost's hand.
I love that line. The kind hand trembled.
Yeah.
So as ominous and spooky as the Ghost of a Christmas Future is, he comes in kindness.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes kindness hurts.
We have to avoid putting anyone in an unpleasant emotional state, Karl. Whatever it takes.
But by failing to reprove and correct where it is needed, the person gets in a worse emotional state. How's that?
But Karl, their lived experience. I don't know. I can't even think like that. I can't even role play that crap.
Look, I like the way, I like the biblical way of doing it.
What's that?
Where you don't call people out in front of everybody.
Right.
You go and you talk with one, and if that doesn't work and it still needs to be done, you bring a few friends.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Old Testament way where you smite them.
Smiting would be good, but you don't reprove people in front of other people because reputations are important. If something needs to be said, you pull them aside and say, "Hey, I don't want to say this out there in front of everybody, but I think you ought to straighten up and do the right thing here.
Yeah.
Just like the Ghost of Christmas Future does in a very dramatic way.
Just point.
To good old Scrooge. And then we get Chapter 5. When he wakes up and he's reformed. I wish it were so easy. Not that it was easy for him, but he's thanking Jacob Marley. That's why I think Marley can't be completely doomed, because, oh, Jacob Marley, heaven in the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees.
So we don't know much about Marley, but who's quote unquote worse? Was Marley Scrooge-esque or just Scrooge-ish?
Well, probably worse. Nobody came to save Marley.
Okay. Wow.
We don't know that Marley got any ghosts. Did Marley have a nephew, Fred?
So that would be that would be a good story. So there's your fan fiction. You write the story of Marley, and then how Marley is told that he can redeem himself by, helping Scrooge, and it takes him these long 7 years. 7 Christmases go by before Marley is broken to the point that he realizes the error of his ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's pretty quick, the ending. He sends a kid to buy, what is it, a goose or a turkey for the Cratchits. Note, there's no refrigeration. That turkey's been hanging in the window.
Yeah, but it's England and December 24th. Like it hadn't.
Well, but you got to hang your meat too. You
got to hang your meat. Yeah, it hadn't been over 40 degrees since mid-November. I read that book, that James Clavell Shogun, like when I was in like the 7th grade, 6th grade. I was in the 6th grade. Have I told this story? I don't know what stories I've told.
We're going to tell them all over and over again.
Over again, because I'm getting old. I did a book report on that for Miss Westrop.
A 1,000-page book.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I can't take this. She made me read Sounder, which is like a children's book, because she couldn't take that one. I was like, you cow. She was a nice lady. But it's ridiculous. But anyway, I haven't read it in 37 years, but he was a Portuguese guy, and he goes to Japan. And Japan is not 1500s Europe, 1600s Europe. They take a bath every day, and everything's different down there.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes a pheasant and hangs it, and he's going to cook it when it's rotten enough that its neck breaks. Like he's got a string around its head and up into a rafter. And he's like, as soon as that thing hits the floor, we're cooking it. Guess that's how you flavor your food.
Yeah, and the Japanese are not going to do that. They're busy eating fresh fish.
Right.
Just pulled from the ocean and chopped up.
Right. Oh, I remember being just...
Did you ever eat sushi?
Yes.
Did you like it?
I don't care. Eating sushi is a lot like not eating sushi.
How so?
Fine, fresh tuna is not terribly flavorful. The rice is not terribly flavorful. You've got some wasabi, and you can, get you a little ginger to clean the palate or whatever. But I don't know. It's much ado about nothing. I just rather have a steak. I don't know. It's all right. Everybody's like, oh, we got to go get sushi. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I read Shogun. She's like, oh, no, you need to read Sounder. 116 pages.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I read a couple enormous books. I was showing off, probably.
I was reading the things I wanted to read.
Yeah.
I don't think I was showing off. That's what I wanted to read. In fact, before I read that, I remember I read a bunch of big books that year. I read Stephen King's The Stand. And that thing's that's a huge book.
It's back when he was good.
Yeah, my sister keeps telling me we need to read some Stephen King on here. He's her very favorite. I don't know about that, but maybe we should.
Detail that you won't necessarily see in the movies. So Scrooge finds the gentleman that was asking for charity, and...
Yeah, he whispers.
Yeah, he gives him a big chunk. Oh, very many back payments are included in it. He goes to church, probably the first time in 40 years. And then goes to see his nephew,
This is Dickens' attention to detail. I like there at the bottom, kind of midway down through 93. Scrooge shows up at the nephew's house, and someone answers the door. I don't know who the heck it is. Dear heart alive, how his niece by marriage started. Scrooge had forgotten for the moment about her sitting in the corner with the footstool, or he wouldn't have done it on any account. He had already seen this scene. One of the ghosts had already shown him this scene, and he knew that she was sitting in the corner, but in this moment he had forgotten that he'd already seen it. It would have been very easy to not write that little piece in, you know? I like that. Shogun, 1,152 pages, 2.55 pounds. With Westroff.
Still have it?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, of course I do.
And he waits for Bob to come in. It's the day after Christmas. Bob needs to come back to work, but Bob is late. And he pretends to be mad because he was a little hungover. It's only once a year, sir, pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. I don't know what the tank is. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir. And Scrooge says, now I'll tell you what, my friend. I am not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer, and therefore... He continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again. And therefore, I am about to raise your salary.
Bob reaches for the ruler. He's like, I would have thrashed this old man. He thought he'd gone crazy. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him and calling to the people in the court for help in a straight waistcoat. A straight waistcoat? A straight jacket.
I have to go watch him up at Christmas Carol. We always have a Christmas movie day every year, and that's my favorite. We make food and just eat appetizers all day. And at the end, I think Rizzo the Rat says it, and Tiny Tim, who did not die.
Spoilers.
It's this corny line on page 95. By the way, Tiny Tim did not die. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, nor any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. And it's a little further joke at the end. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards. Spirits, alcohol.
Yes.
He's abstaining from spirits.
Yeah, this book is surprisingly funny.
Yep. I'm a fan. I've read it a few times. I think if you haven't, Yada.
Yada? Yunta?
Yata. And you can find it online for free and put on a gadget if you want, or you can pick up a copy. We are going from Christmas Stories, Charles Dickens, published by Arcturus Publishing in 2018. It's got 4 other stories, which I haven't read.
You should buy the hard copy and read it, and then just leave it laying around, because then your kids might read it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have it on your device, they'll never see it.
My dad had all sorts of interesting books laying around.
Yeah, that's why I read Shogun. I'm like, Shoguns? Samurais? Who doesn't want to read that?
Show your guns.
Yeah.
If you have interesting books in your house, and here's the hard part, you have some restrictions on the cell phones and the screens, they'll just get bored and they'll probably read something interesting. If you can clear out a little space in the front of their minds from all of the distractions. I was listening to Art of Manliness podcast, and he had a lady, I think from St. John's, talking about whatever it is they do at St. John's. And she used this term, which I've stolen, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Doom scrolling, going on Faceagram or Instabook or whatever, and just trying to find the end of the internet. You just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and before you know it, it's 2 hours later, and you haven't done anything except get mad.
Ugh.
Turn it off. Go read a book. Turn it off for half an hour.
Take a device Sabbath.
Yeah, a device Sabbath is a good idea. Just turn it off. Look around your house. You probably have some books, maybe. Or maybe you go for a walk, or maybe you live with somebody else in your house. You might have a conversation.
There was game playing in this story as well, Karl.
Say that again?
There was game playing.
Yes.
Yeah, the family got together and they played some kind of 20 questions kind of game and a few other little games in there. Yeah, play a game. I'm a big advocate of games.
Mm-hmm.
We play a lot of Wizard around here. It's a card game akin to Oh Hell. Some people play that. And we love that. Yeah, go do that stuff. I'm glad I read it. Thanks for making me do it. I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't made me. I thought I knew it. I didn't have anything against it, but it's so shop worn. This thing, like every sitcom in the '80s would do a Christmas takeoff on this thing, and it's just I didn't think I needed to read it, but I did because there's a reason they stole from it. It's because it's good, and they want to share in the greatness, and didn't. Here's something interesting, Karl. James Clavell, who wrote Shogun, that Mrs. Westrop didn't want me to read, he wrote the screenplays for the 1958 movie The Fly, the 1963 movie The Great Escape. How about that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
I read a few of his, pardon me for yawning on microphone.
Did you read King Rat? That's my favorite.
I don't think so. I read Shogun. I know I read one or two others.
Noble House.
But
Taipei.
Yeah, I think Noble House. Either Noble House or Taipei, but
Taipei's good.
It's been 30 years, at least.
Yeah, I enjoyed
35 years.
King Rat is great. It's the best one. We ought to read it one time.
1,000 pages?
Oh, no, it's not that. It's the shortest of his books. Isn't it funny how that works? And I think it's his best one. King Rat, the Asian Saga, number 4. Yeah, it's the smallest one. It's 400 pages.
Next week, we're going to read an essay from the Harvard Business Review 1968 by Albert Z. Carr called Is Business Bluffing Ethical? So it's a little bit shorter and interesting. Can you lie, cheat, and steal as long as it's business?
I have a lot to say about that.
Well, we'll have to read it and find out.
Do I have? All right. That's fine. I'll do that.
Stay tuned.
Well, hey, Merry Christmas to you guys. This is our 100th episode. For those of you who have listened to, well, even one of them, thank you very, very, very much. I've seen some people posting on Instagram that we were their favorite podcast on Spotify. Spotify lets you do this year in review thing. And man, thank you to you super fans. And like I said, thank you to those folks that have even just listened to it once. It means a lot to me that anyone would care. A guy left an iTunes review. His name's Dave Dennis. It says here, brave minds and great hearts. This is a little much, Karl. He says, this sort of thing is the vanguard of the resistance against the men without chest of C.S. Lewis, those empty husks that are eviscerated every man of the 21st century. I came to Online Great Books podcast through Barbell Logic, and I must say that while I love what I've learned from the Barbell Logic podcast, I think OGB has more staying power and is far more important. After grazing through my favorites, Lord of the Rings, Dune, Canticle for Leibowitz, Hornblower, etc., I am going back to the beginning and working my way through the catalog. I've always thought the books are life and the devotion of Scott and Karl to the greatest books, and the deepest thought is inspiring and inciting, plotting to start my own revolutionary reading cell soon. Let us read, comrades, read and talk and see where it leads us.
Amen.
That almost makes me want to listen to this show.
You don't listen to it?
I listen to every one because I want to know what stories I told, and I still don't know.
So it doesn't do any good.
No. I do listen. It's weird. Again, thank you guys so much. This is our 100th episode. That is nuts. We are going to take a little bit of a break. We've recorded this here on December the 3rd. Karl and I are going to take a little bit of a break and resume recording here right after Christmas, and we'll be kicking that off with Is Business Bluffing Ethical from the Harvard Business Review, January 1968. Albert Z. Carr wrote this thing, and I'm sure there will be hot takes. Yes, enrollment is opening on December 7th. The way you support this show and the way we keep paying producer Brett for doing the thing and keep showing up is when you enroll in our program. So if you go to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast and enroll between December 7th and December 14th, because enrollment is open, we'll know that you listen to the show, and we'll know this is worth doing. It ain't the United Way, guys. We're not doing this. It's not charity.
Yep.
So support
tell
the
a
show
friend
like that. And tell a friend. If you know someone that you think would enjoy our program, recommend our program to them. Our program being the onlinegreatbooks.com program, or the show, send that over to them. And maybe in addition to all those things, start your own revolutionary reading cell. I like that. We're going to start calling it that. Your own home book group. That would be good. So have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will talk to you in 2021.